What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some very entertaining battles in the Summer Cup running a triple level 50 buff team, including this Doduo, which shout out to No Bonfire Head, the recent Battle of Spice world champion who won the competition with a level 50 Doduo and requested for me to set this as my buddy. Now if you didn't know, at level 50 Doduo barely gets into the 1300 CP range, and because of its monstrous attack stat, which is comparable to the likes of Sneasler and Lucario, this Pokemon's overall stat product is so low that PvPoke doesn't even give this Pokemon a ranking. I've also used an elite charge DM to get Swift on this Pokemon, which makes this thing an absolute spam machine. Now in terms of the typing, typically when Drill Peck is resisted, Swift is unfortunately also resisted aside from against electric type Pokemon, and that did actually help me to beat a Unnovan Stunfisk with this team, which was certainly the most problematic Pokemon for this team to deal with. Now this goes without saying, but this is absolutely a team for fun rather than for climbing elo, but even then, the worst I managed with this team were a few 2 and 3s. With that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What is the craziest Pokemon you've ever used an Elite Charge TM on? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. I'm setting into the first battle, leading Doduo into Talonflame. Now, of course, I've got 2 rock types in the back. I'm going to fire off 1 Peck, then swap into my Dwebble, dealing huge damage with the Smackdowns, and also baiting out a Credilli. Now, Credilli is also a problematic Pokemon for my team. However, this is probably the best matchup for me. I'm going to shield here as they fire off the Rock Tomb. Unfortunately, with that Rock Tomb, I don't think the next X-Scissor will get the KO. However, what it will do is potentially put them into range where I can farm them down. At this point, I'm happy to let the Dwebble go down, get an energy advantage with the Doduo as we come back in with it, but the opponent swaps back into Talonflame, so I'm able to swap into my Alolan Geodude. Of course, Fly is going to be double resisted there. Even if they've got Flame Charge, it's going to be single resisted, and even if they full send a Brave Bird, it's just not going to do that much damage. I'm able to tank it, go for the full Volt Switch farm down, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. They're going to come back in with that Credilli, so I'm going to fire off a single Rock Slide here. The first one going to be no shielded, and we actually have the energy for a Rock Tomb as well, so potentially, since this is their final Pokemon, should have just gone for the Rock Tomb there, but it doesn't really matter. We can come in, and as you can see, Doduo wins CMP up against Morpeko. Swift does huge damage there. I can just safely shield up a Psychic Fangs, go for a second Swift when they of course do change forms, and of course from this range we've already seen Swift will be enough damage to take out Morpeko, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into the next battle. We're going to see Doduo into Magcargo. So, this is not a great matchup for me. Once again, we're going to fire off a 1 Peck, then swap out into Dwebble, and the opponent is going to swap into a Gastrodon. So, of course, Dwebble not going to be too bad in this matchup. Smackdowns are resisted, but I actually grabbed a shield advantage with an X-Scissor, which is huge for me. The opponent's still going to have to full send a Water Pulse, as Body Slam is resisted damage. Dwebble able to tank that, not super comfortably, but get off another X-Scissor as well, and that potentially puts them into range where I can farm them down with the Doduo. At this point, I will no shield. I should live a Water Pulse, but you're going to see Water Pulse does huge damage there, so I'm forced to throw straight away. I need them to just let this move go through, and the opponent does exactly that. Now, we've got Gastrodon out of the way. Hopefully, that means Geodude can sweep in the end game, but they are going to go for a debuff first, firing off the Rock Tomb. I'm going to go straight for Rock Slide as I can throw this before they do reach a second Rock Tomb. Rock Slide is going to grab the final shield, and at this point, I don't know what they've got in the back. I am just going to shield anyways, and they're going to have a Dugong. So, of course, they're going to have access to Drill Run here. This is not ideal, but we can go for Rock Tomb here. I can throw 1 Volt Switch, wait 2 turns, and swap and catch the charge move onto Doduo. They fire off the Drill Run, and now all I need to do is farm up, throw on the CMP tie. Geodude going to be winning CMP up against the Dugong here. Rock Slide gets the KO, and now all I need to do is reach 1 more charge move. Could have gone for the Rock Slide, but we have energy for the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I see Unnovan Stunfisk in the lead. Now, this is really problematic for me. I am going to fire off that Swift straight away, assuming the opponent wouldn't throw it immediately, maybe expecting a catch. We go for Swift, we then swap into our Dwebble, and at this point, I am just going to no shield. Of course, Dwebble going to take neutral damage from both charge moves here, but they swap straight away into a Kingdra. This is just going to be a Swift. Swift is going to be resistant damage, so I am going to no-shield this. I do need to save my shields for my 2 other Pokemon anyways, because Stunfisk is going to be very problematic for me. Unfortunately, because I go for Rock Tomb, we actually give them more energy there, so maybe not ideal for me. We're going to come in with the Geodude. I'm going to no-shield, call a bait, and again, they go for Swift. That is huge for me. At this point, they have overfarmed quite a lot. I am going to respect the damage at the last second, and it's an Octazooka. Octazooka, of course, they were debuffed. Wouldn't quite get the KO there, but I'm glad I shielded it anyways. They're going to come back in with Unova and Stunfisk. I fire off the Rock Tomb. I swap back into Doduo, and the opponent comes in with their Fortress. Now, this isn't the worst matchup, but you can see even resisted Bug Bite damage is kind of chunking. We fire off the Drill Peck. They're going to reach a Charge Move just before we get to ours, but it's just a Sand Tomb. It doesn't KO. I'm going to go for a Body Slam here as I want to give a little bit of farm for my Geodude, but they actually use their final shield. Now here, I can't really tank a Sand Tomb, unfortunately, so I'm forced to throw this. Rock Slide gets the KO. Can we outpace this Stunfisk to a Charge Move before they get to back-to-back? I'm not so sure. It's going to be super, super close, but unfortunately, they do just barely outpace me by 2 turns there, and of course, Mud Bomb easily takes us out, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Kingdra in the lead. So, of course, I'm going to look to try and catch a Swift onto my Dwebble. Does not work out. The opponent doesn't throw straight away. So, they farmed up 2 potential Outrage. We're going to shield. It is the Outrage. And we're met once again with Unova and Stunfisk. So, not ideal for me. But, again, this is definitely where we want to see it for this team. X is going to hit for neutral damage. Unfortunately, Smackdown is resisted. And it is quite slow to generate energy. It does do 1 more damage this season. But that's not really going to make a difference in this matchup. Dwebble is actually just barely able to hang on though there. That is huge for me. We can get off another X-Scissor and get them fairly low. Now, at this point, we're kind of going to have to come in with our Doduo here. I'm going to fire off a Swift, but if we're coming back in with Doduo, they're probably going to shield this, realizing we are weak. So we swap, we catch what I'm hoping to be a Discharge onto Geodude, and it is the Discharge there. That is huge for me. Of course, that's going to be resisted, whereas Mud Bomb is double super effective. I'm now going to shield the next Charge Move as they fire off a Mud Bomb, but they swap into Dartrix. Now, of course, Rock Slide going to be cheaper, but I can go for a Rock Tomb here, and Rock Tomb is going to debuff their attack, meaning I should now live a Seed Bomb. And of course, Pecks are going to be double resisted. They cannot go for a farm down here, so I can now over farm, fire off the Rock Slide. Rock Slide is going to be enough damage to get the KO there. They come back in with that Shadow Kingdra. I can just barely reach a Swift, and Swift actually gets the KO from that range. They get the farm down, but just a single Thunder Shock there, which means I can now outpace them to the Rock Slide. It's resisted, but it gets the KO up against the Stunfisk, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Magnezone in the lead. That is not ideal for me. We're going to swap out there after throwing 1 Peck. However, unfortunately, this time, it looks like we might have lagged by 1 turn at the start of the battle because we take the damage on our Doduo. And you can see just a single Volt Switch did huge damage to us. And now at this point, I'm going to debuff their attack there. Unfortunately, they are just so far ahead on energy. They do throw on CMP. I'm actually going to shield this just because I do want to grab either the final shield from the opponent or get them very low. So, Rock Slide is going to be shielded by the opponent. They're now going to overfarm and throw just before we do reach another Charge Move. Unfortunately, Mirror Shot going to get the KO, and they still have so much loaded energy that if we come back in with our Dwebble, even though I have debuffed them, I'm going to shield anyways. They go for Mirror Shot, and once again, they do not get the debuff, but they do reach yet another Mirror Shot. So Mirror Shot is going to connect there. They're now going to come in with a Dartrix, and I am committing to the Rock Tomb. However, unfortunately, Dwebble, not the most attack-weighted Pokemon. Rock Tomb doesn't get the KO. They swap at the same time as me, and unfortunately, of course, I'm not running Brave Bird. We wouldn't have reached it anyways, but Drill Peck does big damage, but it's just not enough. And of course, from that range, Drill Peck will be taking me out. They've got a Charge Move loaded, and of course, Seed Bomb from this range will easily be taking out the Dwebble, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into next battle. I'm going to see Dunsparce in the lead, so not really a great matchup. A kind of a huge core breaker to the team as well. However, of course, I do at least take less damage from the fast moves on the Geodude, and I mean, Drill Run's still going to be double super effective there, but it is playable. They're not quite as spammy as Unova and Stunfisk. But anyways, I'm going to look to throw on CMP here. I'm going to fire off the Swift, and Swift is going to actually get the KO there, so that's huge for me. The opponent does grab a shield advantage, but they let that Dunsparce go down, so that's fine with me. I'm going to fire off the Drill Peck. Drill Peck is going to be shielded by the opponent. and now I'm going to come in with my Geodude. Of course, expecting they probably have access to Sand Tomb. However, Sand Tomb, whilst it is double super effective, it's a pretty bad move there, so maybe in the previous battle I could have lived the Sand Tomb and no shielded up against Fortress. But anyways, we're going to fire for Rock Tomb, swap into Dwebble. They do reach another charge move, but I'm hoping this is just going to be another Sand Tomb, and it is. So of course, they do debuff my defense, but they're on Acid on their Credilli anyway, so it doesn't really make a huge difference. The opponent fires off the Rock Tomb there. I'm going to go and throw on good timing here, and they should be 4 away from the next charge move. So I'm going to go for 2 smackdowns. You can see my switch clock is coming up, and it just barely comes up in time for me to make that catch. They fire off the Rock Tomb. I'm now going to wait for the opponent to try and make their own catch. It doesn't work out for them. We can now fire off another X-Scissor, and X-Scissor from this range actually doesn't get the KO there, but one more smackdown gets that farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into next battle as he Shadow Abomasnow in the lead. So, they are dealing huge damage with these Powder Snows, even though Peck is actually a harder hitting move. Unfortunately, we're just so glassy that they're just outputting way more damage than we can deal to them. But we're going to swap into Dwebble. I'm actually going to shield this, and the opponent does unfortunately bait with a Weather Ball there. But that's okay, they bank a Weather Ball, so I do have to be wary of that. But they come in with Blastoise, and they do not throw straight away. So, Rock Tomb is going to connect. Of course, it's going to debuff their attack. It's not going to make a difference in this matchup, as a Hydro Cannon, still super effective. It still easily gets the KO there. But what I'm hoping to do is come in with the Geodude, shield once, and then go for a full Volt Switch farm down. The opponent has other ideas. They swap back into Abomasnow, so I'm able to swap out, catch the charge move, but Energy Ball doesn't get the KO there, and what I should have done is just allowed them to farm me down. I could have then come back in with the Geodude, go for a resisted Volt Switch farm down, possibly get 2 Volt Switches through as we get the farm down, but unfortunately, because I didn't, they've got a Flying type Pokemon, but they've got access to Drill Run, and Drill Run is double super effective. Unfortunately, even with a debuff, it still gets the KO up against Geodude, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to up in there into the next battle. I can see Gastrodon in the lead, and every single Gastrodon that I saw in the lead just fired off a Body Slam straight away. The first time I did no shield, and actually they just double shielded and they were able to win that matchup, so not ideal for me. So that is why I do shield there, even though I know it is just a Body Slam. At this point, we're going to come in, catch the next Body Slam onto our Dwebble, and the opponent not really sure what to do there. They do just allow a full farm down before coming in with a Shadow Typhlosion, so it does make sense. Of course, I'm firing off the X's, unfortunately not quite having the energy for the Rock Tomb just yet, and they come in with their final Pokemon, a Dartrix, but we are able to reach an X-Scissor before they can farm me down. X-Scissor is going to connect. We come in, unfortunately we do not get a Zero Tone swap there, so they're actually able to full send a Brave Bird to get the KO, but that means we can come in with the Geodude, go for the full farm down, and now I'm just going to fire off a Rock Tomb. I realize unless they're running Solar Beam, I will resist all the damage here, but we might as well just play it safe, debuff their attack anyways. I'm also gonna shield this just in case it is a Solar Beam. We can Volt Switch, farm down Shadow Typhlosion, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on their into next battle. I can see a Shadow Scissor in the lead, but luckily for me, they're on Fury Cutter, so of course that is resisted damage. I'm going to shield this. I'm going to farm up to back-to-back Swifts, and by the time I get there, honestly, these Pecks have put them into range where even a resisted Swift will get the KO. So the first one, going to be shielded, but we can fire off that second one straight away. If they did throw here, we would see him win CMP anyways, but we get the KO, and they come in with a Credilli. Now, they're on Bullet Seed, so I'm going to throw straight away, as the opponent is likely to throw a Rock Tomb as soon as they get there. At this one, I'm going to no-shield this as they fire off the Rock Tomb. I'm now going to come in with my Dwebble, but the opponent's going to have a Quagsire in the back. This is certainly not ideal for me. Of course, I've let the Doduo go down, and Dwebble, whilst it is my better matchup here, still gonna struggle massively. I'm gonna shield this. They full send a Stone Edge, however. So at this point, maybe I can catch the next Stone Edge, but unfortunately, it doesn't work out for me. I kind of needed to wait 2 turns there before swapping out. They go for Mud Bomb there, which is why, of course, they went for Stone Edge up against the Dwebble, obviously not having Alcatel, but either way, it doesn't really matter at this point. The opponent can reach another Stone Edge up against my Dwebble, and Stone Edge, super effective. It gets the KO there, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. I see Gastrodon in the lead once again. So once again, if they do throw that body slam straight away, which they do, I will actually shield respect the damage here. Of course, I'm taking minimal fast move pressure from these mud slaps. I'm going to fire off a drill peck. Maybe you could argue that going for swift is better, as I do need 2 charge moves anyways. But you know what? We're just going to play it out exactly the same as the previous battle. Catch it onto the Dwebble there as they go for the body slam. Once again, they do just allow that full farm down. They're going to come in with a Venusaur. This is fine with me. We are ahead on energy, so I can reach an X-Scissor. X-Scissor is going to grab a shield from the opponent, and they're still going to have to full send a Frenzy Plant here. If they bait with a Sludge, Sludge is resisted damage. It doesn't do much, and as a result, I'm able to reach another X-Scissor. X-Scissor gets them very low. We snipe with the Doduo, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Turtonator. So at this point, Drill Peck is going to grab the final shield. We can fire off another Drill Peck straight away. Drill Peck is going to do sizable damage in this matchup. They can go for a full Incinerate farm down, but it doesn't really matter. We can come in with a Geodude. I should be able to no-shield anything, but I might as well just shield this anyways. They go for Brutal Swing here. Worst case scenario, they do reach another Brutal Swing, but it doesn't really matter. We can fire off the Rock Slide. Rock Slide gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see a Shadow Girafarig in the lead. So, I've used this Pokemon in the Ultra League. It was really fun to run. That pacing of three confusions to the first Psychic Fangs, and then 2 to the second one is really nice. The opponent will grab my shield there. Then, I'm going to swap into a Rockrunnid, which is actually fine with me. We can go for Rock Tomb, debuff their attack, and they're going to look to throw a Bubble Beam straight away. So, that's fine with me, of course. Bubble Beam gets the KO from that range, even with a debuff, but that's okay. We can come in with the Doduo. I'm going to look to overfarm a little bit here, and now fire off the Drill Peck. Drill Peck, of course, super effective. It easily gets the KO there. They come back in with that Shadow Girafarig. I can now outpace them because I overfarmed, firing off the Swift. Swift is going to grab the final shield. I'm swapping into Geodude. This could be a Trailblaze. I will shield this and respect the damage. It is just a Psychic Fangs, but their final Pokemon is a Toxapex, and that's fine with me. We can go and farm up, throw on CMP here. Rock Tomb, of course, going to debuff their attack, and that might actually allow me to live the brine. Of course, they debuff my defense. I debuff their attack, and we're actually able to tank that. We can now fire off the Rock Slide. Rock Slide is going to put them into Peck farm down range. We come out with a Drill Peck loaded or a Swift. Doesn't really matter. They've got like 1 HP anyways, so we fully undercharge it. Swift gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see a Fortress in the lead. So, of course, we are going to once again resist the Bug Bite damage. I mean, they could be on Volt Switch here, in which case I would actually swap out. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and fire off the Drill Peck. Drill Peck is going to be no-shielded, and they do farm up to a potential Rock Tomb. So, I'm going to shield this, and it is a Rock Tomb. Then I'm going to swap into a Shadow Charizard. Look at the smackdown damage. Unfortunately, because I wasn't able to swap out immediately there, they do reach a Blast Burn, which would definitely KO the Dwebble. So, I'm forced to use my final shield. I'm committing to a farm down. We get the farm down there, but they've got Unova and Stunfisk, a Pokemon we've struggled with all day. We're going for Rock Tomb to debuff their attack permanently, and Rock Tomb doesn't do that much less damage than an X-Scissor anyways. We fire off an X-Scissor this time around, and we still don't grab any shields, which not really ideal here. I'm not going to have to fast move farm them down because all of my fast moves are resisted. We actually swap into Geodude here, recognizing I've debuffed their attack. I should now live a Mud Bomb, and they cannot commit to a farm down. So at this point, we fire off the Rock Slide. Rock Slide is going to be shielded, and the opponent is going to perfectly overfarm here. That is certainly not ideal for me. The opponent fires off the Mud Bomb there. I'm going to come in with my Doduo. I do have energy, but I'm going to go for 1 peck, and then I'm going to look to swap and catch onto my Dwebble, and I'm able to do exactly that. Now, Doduo does have energy, but can we outpace them here? We are 1 away from back-to-back Swifts. First one coming through, grabs the final shield, but they've got the energy for a discharge. And unfortunately, Discharge takes out Doduo, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to up in there into the next battle. I'm going to see Talonflame in the lead once again. So we are going to go for 1 peck swap into Dwebble, and the opponent actually choosing to stay in this matchup here. That is a very questionable decision. They will grab a shield advantage. However, I can just fully smack down, farm them all the way down. They're now going to come in with Azumarill, so that made not really much sense at all. But we can go for the Rock Tomb there, debuff their attack. This should now allow me to reach live an Ice Beam here, but I'm not going to get off another charge move anyway. anyway, so I might as well swap out straight away into Geodude, and their final Pokemon is a Trevenant. Now, at this point, I realize Doduo has a dominant matchup here, so I'm not going to shield this. We actually tank a Seed Bomb just barely. We go for a Rock Tomb. I undercharge that just in case they do no shield, but they do end up shielding anyways. We can come in, we can resist the typical charge moves here, unless they're running Foul Play, which they actually are, but they are debuffed, so we do tank that. They come back in with the Azumarill. I can fire off the Drill Peck. Drill Peck is going to grab the final shield from the opponent. We can fire off a second Drill Peck, and Drill Peck won't actually quite get the KO from this range, but it will allow a Peck farm down. Now here we've got the energy, but I might as well just commit to a full farm down anyways. It's actually a simultaneous KO, so not as comfortable as I thought it was going to be, but we do get that farm down regardless. So GG's to that trainer. Into next battle, we're going to see another Shadow Abomasnow. The last time I did stay in, of course we took huge damage, so this time I actually just swap out straight away into Dwebble, and unfortunately met with a Blastoise, and they do swap out fairly soon, so unfortunately for me, they will outpace me to the first charge move. I want to go for a Rock Tomb here, look to debuff their attack, and I am able to grab a shield, however they do overfarm ever so slightly. So Hydro Cannon gets the KO there. We can come in with our Geodude. I'm hoping I can shield once and then commit to a full farm down. But let's see. I'm going to shield this here as the opponent is going to fire off the Hydro Cannon. They are 3 away from the next charge move. And unfortunately for me, they just barely hang on there. Maybe I should have just thrown a charge move instead of swapping and catching the charge move here. Because now they can come in, they can get a huge farm down. And whilst I can win CMP in this matchup, it doesn't really matter. They've got the energy for the Energy Ball. And of course, Energy Ball is super effective damage. Energy Ball will be taking out the Geodude. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there into the final battle of this video, leading into a Swampert, so this is a great lead matchup for me. The opponent's going to safe swap into Furret, so I don't have a great response here. Of course, I do have 2 Rock-type Pokemon which resist the Swift damage, but they can just go for Trailblaze there. So we're going to come in with the Dwebble. Going to no-shield the first move, and they will reach a last-second charge move. However, this is just going to be a Swift, and whilst they are boosted, it is still resisted there, so I'm able to tank that. I can now go and fire off an Exeter, but they will get a very nice Mudshot farm down from this range, getting off 4 Mudshots to get that farm down. They're 1 away from the next charge move. So at this point, we're going to come back in with that Doduo, and the opponent will be throwing straight away. Gonna shield this, of course. They go for Hydro Cannon. Their final Pokemon is gonna be a Shadow Charizard, but they are on Ember. So at this point, I'm not gonna shield this. A Blast Burn, if they throw it, is going to do huge damage, and the opponent's actually able to reach another charge move. But at this point, I have to just no-shield this. Air Cutter is double resisted, but it still gets the farm down. But I recognize my Doduo is going to deal big damage with these pegs. I can just commit to a full peg farm down, taking out that Swampert, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.